So for a very brief moment last week, if you tuned into the highlights for the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix, you may have noticed that Formula One had managed to copyright strike themselves. Obviously, I'm very impartial to this. It's a serious thing, and given my history with FOM, I don't find it funny whatsoever.
That's rude.
Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to the Comedy Review, the show that's hotter than a UK heatwave, barbecuing my entire recording studio, and all I get in return are fat jokes. Yeah, let's see what the Discord is saying on that actually. Oh good. It's also the show where we talk about things that happen in motorsport. Things like this. Max Verstappen throws in the towel, AI turns F1 into Star Wars, which feels strangely racist for some reason, and the future of our sport is well and truly in safe hands.
Gomez jumps off the line, smash on the second row of the grid. Newmanchi does not get away. Reminiscent and a massive crash further back.
One more to go till the summer break then we start with a once great team that has fallen off a fucking cliff. And for once that isn't Red Bull. Yes, the big news this week was all about the Flaccid Stallions, as they announced they'd signed a multi-year contract extension with team boss Fred Vasseur, with their statement driving home the Frenchman's experience, ability to develop talent, and ending by telling the Italian media to go f*** themselves. Okay, I may have made that last part up. That's great news for the stability of the team heading into 2026. Now they just need to transfer that stability over to the design of their car, which still appears to be handling like a drunk in control of a Sainsbury's shopping trolley. The other big story did lie at Red Bull, as Max Verstappen committed his future to the team for 2026, which kind of screws my predictions video for next week. For the first time in my YouTube career I got something right, and now only my patrons and channel members will believe me. That also means it's likely a matter of time before George Russell and Mercedes sign on the dotted line for next season and beyond. That is, unless the headset executioner hates his driver so much he decides to bring Mick Schumacher back or something during the summer break. Despite the big nature of those two stories, otherwise it was a fairly quiet news week after Belgium, probably because that race was so boring everyone was still asleep. Audi have signed a new title sponsor for 2026, bringing on Revolut, and speaking of, a big thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Nah, I'm kidding, I'm not that big yet, plus what sponsors touching this series with a 10-foot fucking barge pole. Go check out the Patreon if you want to keep my lights on. While it may have been a slow news week, that was all about to change, as on the eve of first practice, Felipe Drugovich was spotted walking out of Aston Martin hospitality with a sledgehammer, and soon after it was reported that Fernando Alonso would sit out FP1 due to a muscle injury in his back. Obviously, I'm joking about the whole sledgehammer thing. We all know the real cause of this injury is from carrying fat Stroll on his back for the last 3 years. That meant Drugovich would step in for the Spaniard during FP1, and potentially for the rest of the weekend, showing the world he'd been preparing for this moment long in advance. Look, here he is, emulating Lance Stroll's line from the opening lap of 2021. Another reserve getting a go in this session was Alpine's Paul Aron, who, if rumours are to be believed, could well be driving full-time before the season's out. He was thus loaned out to Sauber, so he could get some practice in the proper Formula One car, and not be scared off by whatever the French had cooked up for this weekend. The Estonian session wouldn't last very long, however, his vomit-mobile having an existential crisis at the exit of turn 12, sidelining him for the remainder of the hour. The other end of the standings also carried little surprise. Lando Norris doing what he does best, setting the fastest lap of the session, while also finding room to test out potential bottle locations for later in the weekend. Maybe he was just copying Lewis Hamilton, the Briton, the most successful driver around here, this the venue of his first win, the last time he changed teams back in 2013. Could we just get a repeat of that 12 years later? Well, it's future Will here, and probably f***ing not. Isaac Hadjar was the final surprise of the opening session, finishing a respectable P4 while scaring teammate Lawson in the middle sector, the Kiwi still coming to terms with the possibility of actually overtaking his teammate. That takes us nicely onto second practice then, where the McLaren and Norris domination would continue. The same could not be said for poor old Drugovich, Fernando magically back to full strength, and the Brazilian seen trading in that sledgehammer for a far more effective shotgun. Norris meanwhile would be in a hurry to fetch a new papaya race suit after he sold his first one with this bottle at the final corner, and that wouldn't be the only close call for the McLaren team. Norris exiting the pits at the end of the session to find teammate Piastri on a hot lap, and thus coming to the conclusion that he should just try driving into the side of him. That sounds like a good time to check in on our Xbellend. Actually, we might come back to that. Let's stick to second practice. And good news, Hamilton fans, your boy's quick again. Granted, he's had to straight line the chicane, but baby steps, am I right? At least he wasn't struggling as badly as Red Bull appeared to be. Max Verstappen left crying after FP1, the team kind enough to lend him a towel in the cockpit to dry those tears, though I'm not quite sure Max saw the funny side of the whole ordeal. Right, I think Twitter's calmed down now. Let's get to our Xbellend of the week. So one of the big talking points for the Belgian Grand Prix was how the FIA ruined it because they were pussies and scared of a bit of moisture. In fact, the situation was so ridiculous, it actually caused Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton to agree on something, that being that the race should have got underway much earlier than it eventually did. That leads us into a tweet from this man, and before we begin, James called, he wants his vowels back. Anyway, at FIA, please remember, if 11 world titles and 170 wins say you can race in the rain, you can race in the fucking rain. Now, while Verstappen and #blessed may be in agreement here, it doesn't stop Team LH crybabies from displaying their lack of intelligence, as when MRF here, which I imagine stands for, and Yuki, I'm going to need your help with this one, medically retarded f***er, to comment, 12 titles. Where does the 12 come from? 2021. Oh, Jesus Christ. Some brave souls would attempt to make MRF see the error of his ways, others would simply poke the bear even more. I think this username, generated by slapping one's keyboard, sums it up quite nicely, proves how smart LH fans really are. Anyway, cheers to this guy for the submission, and if you'd like to nominate the next Xbellend of the week, use the hashtag on screen, tag me on the platform, or join the Discord. Now, on to Saturday. Oh look, it's Bernie Eccleston.
I think more chance of Lewis winning his 8th title than that happening.
Okay. I don't know, you don't think that's going to happen, do you?
Be terrible if something happened to him now.
FP3 would bring more of the action we'd seen thus far. Granted, that's still f*** all. Oscar Piastri would finally get one up on his teammate as he went into qualifying as the lead McLaren driver. All eyes were a little further back though, as whatever drugs Fernando was on for his back pain clearly seemed to be working, as the Astons had been flirting with the top 10 all weekend long. The same could not be said for Isaac Hadjar, who wanted to get a better view of the new paddock building as he entered the final corner backwards, in a final hour that would see him prop up the timing tower P20 in the standings. Let's get into that qualifying session then, and on Talk Shift this week, we thought there might be a Yuki Tsunoda resurgence. Well, that proceeded to age well, as the Japanese driver was once again eliminated from Q1, and to make matters worse, of all the people to do it, it was the seat warmer. Lewis Hamilton was another under threat, though used his experience at the Hungaroring to get to safety. Phew, that would have been awkward, wouldn't it? With Tsunoda joined in the drop zone by Gasly, Ocon, Hulkenberg, and Albon, who's 20th for some reason, we move on to Q2, where Antonelli was fighting to stay alive, resorting to track extending through the final sector on a lap that put him out anyway. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, was under threat again, though used his experience at the Hungaroring to... oh, no, actually he is out this time. And as also revealed, he's been taking lessons at the Lando Norris School of depressed post-session interviews. Italy, congratulations, your revenge for 2008 is complete. You've finally broken him. Behrman, Sainz and Colapinto would complete the drop zone, leaving us with 10 remaining, that somehow included the likes of a Sauber, the seat warmer and Special. In that Q3 session, Piastri would take first blood in the initial runs, as eyes momentarily turned to George Russell, who went purple in the first 2/3 of the lap, only to desecrate his Pirellis at the end and line up third in his Mercedes. The weekend was finally coming alive in Budapest, then this happened. What the actual fuck? Aston Martin, keeping Adrian Newey on house arrest, clearly appeared to be working. Even more evident when Alonso shot up to second when the track was empty. And on the subject of shots, yep, I think that might have been Felipe Drugovich. There were still 2 minutes remaining in the session, however, and the biggest surprise was yet to come. In fact, it was so surprising the F1 TV directors failed to show Charles Leclerc coming across the line out of nowhere to that provisional pole with 13 seconds left on the clock. The McLarens were no longer fighting with each other. In fact, the only fight they appeared to have resembled the sort of thing that your cat's dragged in as you ponder whether to stamp on its head and put it out of its misery or not. All Norris could do was get back ahead of the Aston of Alonso, while Piastri failed to improve and thus remained in P2. Hungary has a habit of throwing up surprise pole positions, and it's done it again, though perhaps the most shocked of the paddock was Charles himself, who appeared to finish all over his Ferrari dashboard upon hearing the news. With Max Verstappen down in 8th, out-qualified by a Sauber, and with possible rain in the air on Sunday, this could well be shaping up to be a good one. Or maybe Sky are just lying to us again. Tell you what, let's just find out. So having woken up to my daily dose of bullying from the Discord, 19 cars lined up on the grid, the second Red Bull was perched in its favourite spot in the pit lane, and we were ready to go racing in Budapest. It was an even start from the front row as Norris looked to challenge immediately from third, only he didn't do that, stamped on the brake 3 parsecs earlier than anyone else, and sacrificed spots to Russell and Alonso in the process. Noss's first lap was in fact so bad he now had the green of a vomit-mobile close in his mirrors. That was Gabriel Bortoleto, who had a mega start, though was now under investigation for getting said start by starting before the start of the race. Anyway, the FIA quickly realised this was bollocks, so just gave teammate Hulkenberg the penalty instead. At the front, meanwhile, Charles Leclerc looked to have genuine leading pace, getting out of Piastri's DRS, while Norris went into his typical Sunday form of trying to whatever he did on lap 1. He was now back past the Aston Martin of Alonso, who was busy identifying as a hearse, preventing anyone else from making it through. Red Bull had sent Tsunoda to the pit lane after ordering a load of new parts for his car. On race day, however, it appeared said parts had magically landed on that of his teammate though. Verstappen looking like a different animal in the early stages of the race. Granted, passing Lawson and Stroll isn't the highest of accolades. The Dutchman was now up into the top 7 and about to storm through the field. Or not, as it turns out. That's the problem with writing these scripts as the race is still going on. This race was in fact so interesting, by lap 10 we were already pondering strategy, and here it appeared there were 3 options. Option 1, taken by Leclerc and Piastri, was to do what everyone else thought going into the Grand Prix and box twice. Option 2, favoured by Lando Norris, because, let's be honest, he hasn't got a whole lot left to lose, was just to try the one stop and gently caress a set of hards through about 40 laps. And then there was option 3, stick with the 2 stop, but extend them to 7 seconds in the pit box because you're Alpine. Wow, that was so bad you even got a Brit feeling bad for an Argentinian. Having been unable to pass the Ferrari of Leclerc on track, McLaren saw the first stop as an opportunity to get Oscar ahead of Leclerc with an undercut. That plan working out as well as, well, anything that comes out of Flavio Briatore's hole. So with the Scuderia performing under pressure for perhaps the first time ever, we bore witness to some cracking fights throughout the midfield. Russell got to gently play with Fernando Alonso's prostate, while Verstappen was busy closing in on Hamilton, which in Budapest typically means only one thing. In fact, the fear of a collision was so great the Ferrari was scared off the road down at turn 4. It was now time for the leader's second stops, Oscar waiting a few laps longer to get a tyre delta on Leclerc for the end of the race. As it turned out, that wasn't necessary at all, the Scuderia somehow breaking the Monegasque car in the second pit stop, leading to him becoming a very displeased sitting duck for the remainder of this one. That meant Piastri looked like the best driver on the planet when he swooped around the outside of the Ferrari on lap 51, and went up the road to snatch the lead back from Norris. Charles' complaining throughout the second half of the race went on for so long, at one stage it even broke the TV graphics, and now the Mercedes of George Russell fancied a sniff at his spot on the podium, which funnily enough didn't really improve the Ferrari driver's mood. Leclerc thus went on a self-destructive killing spree, as he took the mantra of if I can't have a P3 finish, then no one can, the 63 car eventually making it by with 8 to go, and Charles receiving a penalty for this last move, and yeah, fair enough, he was acting like a fucking lunatic in that one. Despite that, he would eventually come home to finish 4th, still seething about Ferrari ruining his race, until he had a meeting with upper management, after which it strangely enough wasn't Ferrari's fault anymore. All of that has almost made me forget about the battle for the lead, Norris still hanging on through traffic as Piastri stormed after the Britain's arsehole in the closing laps, even stealing his FP2 tactics with just a couple of tours to go. That marked the last real opportunity, however, the Australian unable to recover for a final attempt on the last lap, and watched as his teammate cut down his championship lead to just 9 points heading into the summer break. That meant Lando's bottle at the start actually got him the win in this one, the superior one stop only on the cars to begin with because his own incompetence had resigned him to 4th in the other strategy. Now to his fans on Twitter, who appear to be implying he simply f***ed up the start on purpose, well, you can guess what I think about that. But fair play to Lando Norris today, who, lap 1 aside, drove an incredible Grand Prix to close this championship right up heading into the last 11 races of the season. Other shout-outs go out to Alonso and Bortoleto for some huge performances inside the top 10, and to Ferrari for ruining yet another Lewis Hamilton run of form and thus pissing off Colton H on social media. Good job guys, well done. Here's my race rating then, let me know yours in the comments below, and apologies for being a little late in getting this one out to you all. If you can't tell through my voice, I'm a little bit sick right now, though it would make me feel much better if you liked the video and got subscribed for more throughout the rest of 2025. We're gunning for 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'm really going to need your support in making that happen. I'll have a couple more videos coming out next week, one of which is already out for members and patrons right now, so big thanks to them, and go to the links in the description below. But until then, have a good one everybody. No, wait, I've got the outro wrong. I mean, f*** off.